please don't scroll. Not because I need your attention, but because most of my life I was seen constantly and understood almost never. People remember the noise, the arenas, the lights, the chants. They remember the moments that looked loud. What they don't remember is how quiet it all felt afterward. When the locker room emptied, when the tape was still tight around my ankle, when the adrenaline faded and the silence showed up instead. They think intensity is noise. They think greatness is volume. But the truth is, the hardest parts were always quiet. Pressure doesn't scream. Expectation doesn't shout. It sits with you. It follows you home. It waits for you when no one else does. I learned early that if you show doubt, people lose faith. So I stopped showing it. I learned that if you slow down, people question your hunger. So I didn't. I was praised for being relentless, but no one asked what that relentlessness cost. They saw confidence. They didn't see the weight behind it. This isn't about basketball, not really. It's about what happens when the world decides who you are, and you carry that version of yourself long after it stops fitting. The quiet side of me was never empty. It was heavy. And if you're still here, still listening, then maybe you understand something already. Because the people who know silence don't rush past it. Expectation doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly, game by game, season by season. Until one day, it's no longer something you carry. It's something you live inside. People think pressure comes from critics. It doesn't. It comes from knowing what you're capable of and refusing to accept anything less. I wasn't chasing applause. I was chasing alignment between who I believed I could be and what I demanded from myself. That kind of standard isolates you. Not everyone wants to live at that edge. Not everyone can. And eventually, you stop expecting them to. You train when others rest. You stay focused when others celebrate. You push when your body is asking for mercy. From the outside, it looks like obsession. From the inside, it feels like obligation. Because once people believe in you, failure doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like betrayal. So you don't slow down. You don't explain. You don't ask for understanding. You just carry it. The distance grows quietly. Teammates, friends, even parts of yourself. Not because you don't care, but because caring costs too much when there's no room left to be human. Discipline becomes armor, focus becomes shelter, and loneliness becomes familiar. You tell yourself this is the price, and maybe it is. But prices are easier to pay when someone acknowledges what they're actually buying from you. Most don't. So you keep going. Not loudly, not proudly, just consistently. Because stopping was never part of the agreement you made with yourself. At some point, the noise changes. It's no longer cheers, it's opinions. People start telling your story without asking you to speak. They reduce years of effort into a single headline, a single moment, a single mistake. I heard the labels: cold, difficult, unforgiving. I didn't argue with them. Arguing would have meant I needed their approval, and I didn't. But silence has a cost, because when you don't explain yourself, people fill in the gaps with whatever version feels convenient. Support fades quietly, not with confrontation, with distance. Calls stop coming. Conversations get shorter. Belief becomes conditional. You notice it most when things aren't going well. That's when you learn who admired the outcome and who respected the work. I never asked people to stay forever. I just thought honesty mattered. Consistency mattered. Turns out those things are expensive when the results aren't guaranteed. So people leave carefully, politely, without saying goodbye. And you're left carrying not just the responsibility, but the narrative too. You start questioning yourself, not your ability, your judgment, who you trusted, why you trusted, whether expecting loyalty was asking for too much. Those questions don't break you. They sit with you. They wait. And the hardest part isn't being criticized. It's realizing that when the weight got heavy, you were lifting alone. There were moments when walking away would have made sense. Not quitting, just stepping back, letting the noise fade, letting someone else carry the weight. My body gave me reasons. Pain that didn't disappear with rest. Injuries that didn't heal on schedule. Mornings where getting out of bed felt like a negotiation. But leaving wasn't relief. It felt like erosion. Because when you've committed to something fully, walking away doesn't free you, it follows you. So I stayed. Not out of pride, not out of stubbornness, out of responsibility. People think staying is heroic. It isn't. It's repetitive, uncelebrated, quiet. You show up when no one's watching. You push through days that won't be remembered. You accept that pain becomes routine, not a crisis. Staying means you stop asking whether it's fair. You stop waiting for recognition. You stop expecting it to get easier. You just do the work because not doing it would cost you something worse than exhaustion. It would cost you yourself. So you learn to function inside discomfort. You learn to compete without sympathy. You learn to keep your standards even when they isolate you. And slowly, staying stops feeling like a choice. It becomes who you are. And then there's you. Not the crowd. Not the commentators. Not the people who show up only when the story is easy to celebrate. You stayed. You didn't need highlights. You didn't need explanations. You didn't need certainty. You're just here, listening. That matters more than you think, because presence is rare. Real attention is rare. Most people are already halfway gone before you finish the sentence. You don't realize how heavy that feels until someone doesn't leave. Until someone sits without trying to fix, without trying to judge, without trying to turn your story into their opinion. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm not asking you to defend me. I'm acknowledging you. Because staying, when there's no reward for it, is its own kind of discipline. You don't know me personally, and yet you understand something many people close to me didn't. That endurance isn't always loud. That commitment isn't always visible. That strength often looks like silence. And maybe you're listening because you know that feeling. The feeling of giving more than you receive. Of carrying things no one asks about. If that's true, then this isn't just my story. It's shared. And for a moment, that makes the weight lighter. There are questions that don't want solutions. They just want space. I asked myself if expecting loyalty was outdated, if commitment only existed as long as it was convenient, if caring this deeply was a flaw disguised as discipline. No one prepares you for how often you'll be misunderstood when you refuse to simplify yourself. People prefer clean stories, heroes or villains, wins or failures. Real lives don't work like that. So they compress you. They strip away context. They replace effort with narrative. And after a while, you stop correcting them. Not because you agree, but because correction doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it just feeds the noise. Silence becomes a habit. You learn to hold things in. You tell yourself you'll process it later. Later rarely comes. The weight doesn't disappear, it settles in your chest, in your posture, in the way victories feel quieter than they should. You start wondering if the world values builders or just what they produce, if sacrifice is respected or simply consumed. Those questions don't break you, they slow you down. They make you careful about where you give your energy, who you trust with your effort, who you allow close. Because once you know how easily commitment can be reinterpreted, you don't give it away casually again. You don't harden, you narrow. And narrowing feels lonely. Hope isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't trend. It doesn't argue its case. Hope shows up when someone doesn't turn away. For a long time, I thought hope came from winning, from proving something, from silence after doubt. It doesn't. Winning fades. Proof expires. Silence always fills back in. Hope came from smaller moments, a message that didn't ask for anything, a presence that didn't demand certainty, someone willing to sit with complexity without needing it to resolve. That kind of attention changes how heavy things feel, not because the weight is gone, but because it's witnessed. You don't realize how powerful that is until you've lived without it, until you've been surrounded by people and still felt unseen, until you've spoken and felt unheard. Hope is knowing that listening still exists, that attention can still be intentional, that not everyone reduces effort to outcome. It doesn't fix the past. It doesn't erase doubt. It just keeps the future from feeling empty. And sometimes, that's enough. I used to think strength meant carrying everything without pause, that slowing down was weakness, that silence was safety. I was wrong about some of that. Silence protects you, but it also separates you. And over time, separation starts to feel normal, expected. You adapt so well that no one notices you're adapting at all. Resilience becomes invisible, and invisibility becomes the standard. That's when you realize you haven't been strong for a moment. You've been strong for too long. There's a quiet grief in that. Not dramatic, just steady. You stop sharing the harder parts because it's simpler not to. You stop explaining because explanations get shortened, edited, misunderstood. So you carry it alone. Not because you want to, because it costs less. I don't tell this to be understood by everyone. I don't need that. I just need to know that some people still listen without turning pain into judgment, without turning complexity into noise. If you're still here, then maybe you're someone who's carried more than was visible, someone who stayed when leaving would have been easier. We don't need to resolve anything tonight. Some things don't resolve. They just soften when they're finally acknowledged. This isn't a conclusion. It's a pause, a moment where effort is seen, where silence isn't empty, where staying counts. And for now, that's enough.